Hi there. Thanks for joining me again for this series on faith and fear. We had the introduction before, and this is part one, which is stories of fear and stories of faith. So it's really starting to get into what do I mean by this dance between faith and fear that I believe we all experience. Faith recognizes and confesses the stories of fear in which we live our lives and that stifle, imprison, and oppress, because faith is of a different story. Faith frees us to approach our fears and pain courageously and find that they are doorways into new and different realities, realities of belonging, realities of possibility, realities of worth. So, what do I mean by this? Well, we learn stories of fear from birth. They're ingrained in our DNA. They become scripts for our lives, like delusional actors, we play the parts assigned to us in these stories without thinking, believing them to be all there is. And so we allow these fears to chase us through the drama of our lives. And these stories are compelling. They have a stage, a world that makes sense, beliefs about ourselves, others, or the world, a worldview, if you like. You aren't wanted. Life is cruel. Everyone leaves you eventually. People will hurt you. You can't trust people, really. You can't do much. Something's wrong with you. God sees you and is never pleased. You don't belong here. You're unlovable. You're just here to help others. You're here to get to the top. These beliefs are felt deeply within our bodies. And our stories also have characters, of which you are one or many, that are given predictable rules, rules by which we learn to act. They might be taught, hurry up, man up, or learn from experience. To be tolerable, I must be quiet and gentle and polite. They're often reinforced by validation from important others. These rules may also be more stereotypically, these rules that govern the way we present ourselves and behave in public, as well as how we view ourselves. And if we've learned a stereotypically masculine script built on the fear of being vulnerable, we may build an armor to protect ourselves. This could be an insecurity masking swagger or bravado or being a lad. It could be anger and aggression. It might be stoicism, rationality, a need to always be right, or humor. These rules may also be stereotypically feminine, built on the fear of being seen. We hide and avoid the bad we imagine could or will happen if we put ourselves out there. We avoid risks. We avoid anything where we could get it wrong. We avoid being visible and noticed. We do what we think will be acceptable to others. We might be gentle, kind, and a good listener and generally nice, or give all our time and energy to looking after others. As in a drama, these rules define our character. Tragic hero, comic sidekick, scheming villain. And it's very difficult to break out of our role. Improvisation is not allowed here. They're what we must do, what we should do, what we're allowed to do if we're going to be allowed to stay on this stage. But faith is of a different story. There is a part of us, I believe, that must be quieter than the rest, stiller, for it can hear or perhaps remember the whisperings of another story, a story older than our fears and the predetermined characters that fear has had us play, a story that lives in each of us. This is what I mean by faith. To move beyond the fear stories that dominate our narrative, we need to learn to be quiet, to listen into this part of us and the faith stories it hears. How do we? How do we find our faith? It can happen suddenly and violently when some unexpected event rips apart the characters we have so carefully played and exposes them as fictions or at least incomplete and misleading. Such points of crises are when lives fall apart. plunged into voids of breakdown and depression. Alternatively, we can learn to cancel the noise generated by our fear stories and reconnect with our faith story. We might do this by spending time in environments that, unlike our 21st century hyper-connected world, allow quiet, with people who have done or are doing this same reconstructive work, in places and space that encourage, even force us to be still, or by grounding ourselves in the natural world. And then we allow our faith stories to speak into the stillness. For when we tap into this alternative narrative, we might begin to find the courage to look at other stories, the fear stories that we've been living in, and view them more critically. We might begin to judge the fears that drive them and us and assess the logic or illogic behind them. We stop looking at the audience and turn to look at the stage on and the script to which we have been playing. And when we do this, we often see how ludicrously disconnected from our inner needs and desires this stage and script have become. The process of exposing the fears that have driven us thus far in life can feel like entering dark caves of pain. These fears feel like abysses of confusion, but if just a little bit of faith can let us approach the entrance to these caves and feel the fears and pains as they are, or even to free fall a while in the abyss of confusion and disillusionment, we can find that these are actually doorways into new realities. Realities that we in faith long suspected existed, heard whispers of, or distantly remembered. We discover stories of belonging, possibility, hope, and worth. But we'll keep living somewhere between our fear and our faith. This isn't the end of the process. We likely continue our lives oscillating between our fear stories and the rediscovered faith stories. We will catch ourselves living the former, approaching again the fears that they are built on, and re-entering again into the land of faith until some other event or actor pulls us back onto the old stages. And I suspect the value of self-care practices, journaling, walking in nature, listening to music, reading and watching films, and spiritual practice like mindfulness and prayer, are that they give space where we can sink through our fear and into our faith, and maybe even hear the stories it faintly hears. And in so doing, to begin to live again, even for a short time, the story of faith rather than the stories of fear. Take care, guys.